Hey guys, Will here back with a new video. The first one in a very long time. I figured with the announcement of the new Super Smash Bros. Game coming out in this year for Nintendo Switch, that I should make a new video for a couple of reasons. First, Smash Bros. Has this incredible ability to make me excited on a level that can't really be matched by any other game series, media franchise, or pretty much anything. It's a little weird, actually. As well, Smash Bros. Videos were the only things that ever got views on this channel, so I figured I might as well jump on the bandwagon and get a little extra attention on YouTube. With all of that said, and this game supposedly coming out by the end of this year, there's a whole lot to speculate considering that we don't know jack shit about it. So let's jump right in. Probably the biggest question at this moment in time is whether this game will be an enhanced port or a brand new game. While there's arguments for both sides, I definitely side with new game, and it all lies in the title. I guarantee that if this was a port, the logo reveal would have shown the Smash logo and then had for Nintendo Switch fade in immediately afterward. Instead, we have Sakurai tweeting about how he's been working his ass off to get the game done, and that the title reveal is gonna be a big deal. Imagine if Sakurai spent all this time building up the titles to this new game, and it ended up being Super Smash Bros. Deluxe, or Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. The level of disappointment would be ridiculous, and it just doesn't make any sense. Who knows what the title is going to end up being, but the fact that that's even a part of the discussion tells me we're dealing with Smash 5, which begs the question, what direction are they going to take this new game in? At least for the character roster, there seem to be two current schools of thought. Either keep with the Smash 4 philosophy and make the roster even more massive, or scale it back and retool everything. Obviously a large roster means more characters, and probably more obscure ones, so we're most likely going to get requested, but ultimately niche characters with that approach. On the other hand, I'm really intrigued by the concept of a reboot. Just seeing Breath of the Wild Link, a design very different from traditional ones, in the trailer intrigued me with what kinds of changes they're willing to make to classic characters. Remember, Breath of the Wild is a very different game from other Zelda games, and there's several abilities Link uses in Smash but doesn't have in that game, specifically the hookshot and a reliable boomerang. Maybe they're going to change Link to make him more similar to his Breath of the Wild incarnation and do similar things for other classic characters. Or even better, maybe custom movesets will come back, and taking a page from Mega Man and Palutena, the alt moves will be used to represent more of the character. For example, Mario's up special could stay as the Super Jump Punch by default, but one alternate could be the Spin from Super Mario Galaxy, giving strong horizontal knockback. And another could be a jump utilizing Cappy from Mario Odyssey, giving him more horizontal and vertical recovery at the cost of it not doing any damage. I think most people would agree that the way custom movesets were used in Smash 4 was pretty lame, which sucks because it's one of the features in this series that has the most potential. If they were to include more diverse custom moves for the characters with a backlog of abilities, I think that would make a better game for everyone. I don't really have that much to say when it comes to new stages or new modes, so let's just go straight into what I'm sure the majority of you came to this video to see, my character speculation. These aren't in any particular order, so this isn't a countdown or anything like that. Really, it's just me listing off some characters that I would personally really like to see in this new game. Starting with a few from a video that I made a few years ago. This is one of those character picks that I'm sure most people haven't really considered, but make a whole lot of sense when you really think about it. Ever since Scribblenauts debuted in 2009, it's been one of the most prolific series on Nintendo consoles, with 5 games being released across the DS, 3DS, Wii U, and with the Showdown coming out just a few days ago, the Switch. Scribblenauts Unlimited, the third game in the series, also had Nintendo exclusive content, with Mario and Zelda characters making an appearance. Finally, the nature of these games, with Maxwell being able to summon any object the player can think of, mean his moveset potential is literally infinite. As for how he'd actually play, I'd imagine he'd be something similar to the Villager. Small, lightweight, fast, and having a lot of wacky moves. Maybe he could even have something similar to Game & Watch's Hammer, a roulette move that could be pathetic, devastating, and everything in between. Not to say that I think it's super likely or anything, but I do think that Maxwell's inclusion in this new game is something that really is in the realm of possibility. My next pick, on the other hand... Just mentioning a character like Wreck-It Ralph when talking about Smash Bros. I'm sure is gonna raise some eyebrows. After all, the two rules that pretty much everyone seems to agree on when picking characters are must have originated from a video game and must have appeared on a Nintendo console. Ralph barely passes that second requirement and straight up fails the first one, so his chances seem pretty slim. Still, there's something about him that I latch onto. I loved the first Wreck-It Ralph movie, and I'm really excited for the sequel. And even if the chances are small, I don't think they're impossible. Just after the first movie came out in 2012, Sega released Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which Ralph was playable in. The sequel is coming out this November, and while we don't have a release date for the new Smash game, I think the timeline will be similar to what happened with the first movie. Obviously there's things holding it back. Nintendo and Disney, while probably not in conflict, clearly are in no rush to partner up, with Nintendo going instead to Universal for their theme park endeavors and Illumination for the new Mario movie. And crossing from just game characters to full-on multimedia ones, even one as tied up in gaming as Ralph, may not be a step Sakurai and his team are willing to make just yet. But I still believe in the big guy, and I really hope we can see him make a grand entrance into the world of Smash someday. So far we've talked about two cutesy characters that have been on my mind for Smash Bros. For a very long time. Let's now move into a character that's from a much more mature game, and I've really only considered in the past few months. This is one character that I think has a lot going for him, and a lot going against him. So let's start with the pros. Doom as a franchise actually does have a pretty decent history on Nintendo, with a port of the first game showing up as early as the Super Nintendo, and the first and second games finding their way to the Game Boy Advance. On top of this, Doom 64 was a completely original game exclusive to a Nintendo console, and there's obviously the Doom 2016 port, which is really the only reason we're talking about this. Speaking of that port, it seems like Nintendo and Bethesda are starting to have a really good partnership, with Doom and Skyrim already coming to the Switch, and Wolfenstein 2 showing up sometime this year. Doom Guy is one of the more iconic video game characters, and I think he's one of the best characters that could symbolize Nintendo's recent success for the Switch. As far as moveset goes, though, there are some concerns. Remember when Snake was in Brawl and they gave him a ton of explosive moves so that he wouldn't use any guns? Yeah, well, pretty much all of what Doom Guy can do is related to guns of some kind, so they definitely have to workshop it. He does have some more fantasy-type weapons, specifically the plasma rifle and the BFG, and he does have melee attacks, though they definitely have to be toned down some. We're always talking about how many sword users there are in these games, so maybe it's time for the first chainsaw user. Those are the main characters that I personally have a lot to say on, so now I'm just going to be rapid firing through a bunch of characters that I either have heard people speculate on before, or I just don't really have that much to say about. I would be shocked if we don't see a Ubisoft character in this game. They've been one of Nintendo's closest third parties, supporting the Switch and even the Wii U pretty consistently. As for who, it's definitely between Rayman and the Rabbids. I'd much prefer Rayman, but I do think it could go either way. Rayman has the trophies in Smash 4 and Nintendo publishing Legends in Japan on his side, whereas the existence of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is definitely a mark in the Rabbids' favor. Maybe we'll even get both. After all, one third party getting multiple characters isn't unheard of. Speaking of Capcom, the announcement of Okami coming to Switch reminded me of how cool Amaterasu would be. I imagine her being a heavy yet limber character whose moves take good advantage of the Retribution Mirror and Celestial Brush. It seems kind of unlikely that we'd see a third Capcom character, but with Wolf Link and Midna's time to be included long since having come and gone, I think Amaterasu would be an awesome addition. Zelda is one of the hardest franchises to talk about for Smash characters because it deserves so much and yet there seem to be so few good, relevant choices. Personally, I think it's time we start buckling down and accepting that whoever they pick probably won't be in that many future Zelda games, especially because Breath of the Wild gives us a bunch of cool options. I think I'd still like to see Impa the most, especially a version based on Hyrule Warriors, but it would be cool if we end up getting one of the champions, Cass, my boy Sidon, or even something I hadn't considered. just as long as we get something that's not a Triforce holder. I think Travis Touchdown is in a very similar spot to where Bayonetta was when she got in. Niche, mature franchise that probably would have faded into obscurity without Nintendo's help. Now we've got a spin-off coming out exclusively on the Switch, which could potentially lead to a new sequel. I think the moveset potential is there, Suda51 wants him in, and if Bayonetta taught us anything, it's that you can tone down a mature-rated character while still keeping their personality intact. Let's bring Mr. Touchdown into Smash. As for indie characters, there's two that I'd really like to see. The first is Shovel Knight, which I don't think I have to go into much detail about. Pretty much all polls about the Smash ballot had this guy near, if not at the top, and the moveset potential is definitely there, so what more do I have to say? My other indie pick would be Quote from Cave Story. A lot of people cite this game as the father of indie games, which is really hard to argue with. Plus, he's got a bunch of weapons that could be used in Smash, and there's been like 14 ports of this game to Nintendo consoles. Nindies are one of the most important parts of Nintendo's current business model, and I think both of these guys would be good characters to represent that. If it weren't for the Insane trilogy coming to Switch, I wouldn't even be seriously considering Crash. But I do think it's a legitimate possibility now. Like Ubisoft, Activision's one of the few third parties that supported Nintendo through the Wii U era, so they're another company that would be cool to see a rep for. Plus, just imagine if we had a game where Mario, Sonic, and Crash were all playable to beat the crap out of each other. That kind of shit is what dreams are made of. Konami is one of the most interesting companies to talk about for a few reasons. They're currently the only third party that had a character in a previous Smash game, but that character was taken out. The return of Snake is something that people talk about all the time, but I see there being two other characters he has to compete with. The first is Simon Belmont, who has the historical relevancy, being one of the last NES characters left to include, and having a bunch of moveset potential. And the other character is Bomberman, who's even more historically relevant than Simon and Snake, has appeared in a game with Wario, and his newest entry was one of the most prominently featured Switch launch titles. There's tons of demand for all three of these characters, and I'd love to see all of them, though the idea of Snake coming back alongside a port of MGS5 to the Switch makes me the most interested in that. Finally, Mario is a series that's size justifies a ton more characters than it has, and while Captain Toad and Paper Mario are the most discussed choices, I'm squarely on Team Wah. The only concern that I have with him is that every fight would become super unfair. After all, he is a god. Of course, there is the most obvious choice. You know the one I'm talking about. The one with awesome moveset potential, a fantastic design, and is the star of one of the most iconic games on the Nintendo Wii. I'm of course talking about Ninja Breadman. Ain't I a stinker? Hey guys, thanks for getting to the end of this video. I gotta say, you spent 15 minutes listening to me talk, and for some of that time you had to look at my face, and neither of those are things that anyone should ever have to do, so the fact that you did it for so long, that's really, really impressive, and I'm really appreciative of it. Now, I gotta say like and subscribe because this is a YouTube video, but more than anything else, what I want you to do is comment. If you have anything to say in regards to a character that I talked about, or a character that I didn't talk about, or some new stage, or a mode, or a feature, or something that you want to have in these new games, definitely let me know. I'm thinking that if I get enough comments that I want to respond to, then I'll make an entire separate comment response video. So if you've got something to say, you can probably hear my feedback on it pretty soon. I'm really happy to be getting back in the swing of making videos, even if it does sort of throw my entire life off for a couple of days. Anyone that's seen me since the Smash Bros. Announcement will probably be able to tell you that, yeah, I've been kind of deranged the past couple of days, hell-bent on getting this video done. It's currently 7:12 a.m., and guess who didn't sleep last night? This guy. So once this video's done and exported and uploaded and all that, I'm gonna go to sleep. which sounds pretty good right now, but first I gotta get the video done. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Thanks for watching the video. I put a pretty good amount of effort into it. I spent a long time working on this, and yeah, I had a lot of fun making it, so I hope that you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it, and hopefully I'll catch you for the next video. Thanks, bye.